3.3, Community Interest Polling Professional Services Agreement and establishment of an ad hoc subcommittee. Recommendation, staff recommends that the City Council, number 1, approve and authorize the City Manager to execute the Lou Edwards Group Professional Services Agreement for Community Interest Polling Services in the amount of $37,750. And number 2, establish an ad hoc subcommittee consisting of 2 council members to oversee the community interest polling process and report preparation.
Okay, staff report.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to bring this report for your consideration this evening. As you know, over the past year, a number of items at citywide level, a number of legislative items have impacted the city, citywide. Some of those we had control over, some we haven't. For example, the passage of Proposition 64, which was in regards to utilizing marijuana within the communities. It was passed by 57% of the California voters and 52% of the Wildomar voters, although still being illegal at the federal level. Well, what does that mean for our community? What do we want to do here? Do we want to approve the manufacturing or the cultivation or the distribution or the retail sales of it? We're looking for some information, some guidance, what the community's appetite is for this activity. Secondly, as you know, we lost our motor vehicle license fee money 6 years ago. And recent state legislation last May, with the governor's signing of Senate Bill 130, that reinstated an annual replacement for our motor vehicle license fee revenues. We'll be receiving, as you know, we lost about $1.8 million a year. Over the 6-year time period, that's over $10 million. Well, the signing and the reinstatement of the fees, or of the revenue source, that does not include any back pay. We're not going to get it's not retroactive. We are going to get a portion, or our replacement motor vehicle license fee revenue. We'll get about $2 million a year, every year. But the money that we lost over the past 6 years, we're not going to recover. So we have over $10 million worth of deficits, infrastructure type deficits, service level deficits. These are not debt that we have. These are, like I said, infrastructure deficits. The streets in dire need of attention. Our service levels have been suppressed in a number of areas. Our parks have been limited to the 3 that we have. And so we're looking at what can we do to get ourselves back up to an adequate service level for this city. And could we be looking at some other type of revenue source that would help us get back to those levels for this community. So would the community have an appetite for a additional sales tax, or a raising of the transient occupancy tax, which only affects hotelers, or other items that they may be of interest in? Is there an interest to self-fund some of these improvements that would have a long-term impact on the community? Well, we don't know those questions. We don't know the answers to those questions. So the enlistment of an expert who could do community interest polling in these areas would be of great benefit to staff, and help us provide recommendations to the council for your decision and implementation. So what we're asking you tonight is to take a look at and consider the approval of engaging in a contract with the Lou Edwards Group to do the community interest polling on those types of subjects. And secondly, to establish an ad hoc subcommittee made up of 2 of the council members to help guide the staff and work with a consultant on the types of questioning and reviewing of the data as it comes back into the city. So 2 items: consider the approval of professional services agreement. And if you go forward with that, the second item would be requesting that you establish an ad hoc subcommittee who will provide their services, and once those services are over, the ad hoc subcommittee would disband. So that completes my staff report, and we're available for any questions you may have.
Okay, before we go into that, we'll get any public comments on this one?
Yes, we have two. First is Ken Mays.
This is nothing more than an attempt by this city, some of y'all who pledged no new taxes during the runs for office, to solicit for more Mello-Roos fees from an already weary citizenry. The recent approvals of Measure Z, Mount San Jacinto Community College Bond Issue Measure AA, and the LEUSD Measure V School Bond, it's time to say no more.
The next speaker is Greg Langworthy.
Just a brief comment. I appreciate the need to raise more revenue, and I think that this proposal, having community interest polling service to get the community's input into what we might be willing to pay to help make up the shortfall, I think that's very good. What I would object to is still the putting the marijuana cultivation into that public polling, because it's still against federal law, and I think that you guys as a council should continue to respect the Constitution, know that federal law does trump state law, and even though the state of California has approved this, legalizing marijuana use and cultivation, federal law still has not changed, and so I think as a council that should be taken out, because I think that's part of your responsibility, is to respect the federal law over the state law. Thanks.
That's all the speakers I have.
Okay, well, council discussion, but one of the things I was going to ask, with the approval of SB1 with the new sales tax on the gas, what is the amount that we're expected to receive off of that revenue?
Annually, that's, it's about 800,000?
Yeah.
Over a 10-year period, annually about 800,000, about 8.1 million total. Ongoing, yeah. Oh, beyond a 10-year period. Okay, about 800,000.
So 800,000 every year. So we would be getting a revenue source, even though it might get overturned on the next ballot. But at this point, we're going to receive about 800,000 because of the tax increase, correct? And we get that percentage to us.
That's correct. It is restricted. It has to be for road maintenance and improvement. It cannot be used for public service, and it does not offset any general fund revenues.
Right, I get that, but it is for the roads. That's the main thing it was supposed to be for in the first place. That's Measure A, is that correct? Well, it's not considered Measure A, but that's Measure A money goes to the roads.
Yeah, this is
So it's
actually
restricted like Measure A with the...
It'll be similar to the gas tax funds.
Right.
It uses the same formula as the Street and Highways Code for the gas tax funds. And actually, what we will be getting out of this will bring us back to where we were in our gas tax revenues about 3 years ago. So our total combined with gas tax and this new measure money, SB1, will bring us up to about $1.5 to $1.6 million a year next year. Not this year, we get a portion.
But 3 years, but 3 years ago, it was based on the higher rate of gas, am I correct?
It was based on
The $4 and whatever it was, which we don't want to ever see again, so I get it. Okay, I understand.
Well,
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not sure what that has to do with this.
No, I'm just thinking,
This is so important to do. We have a handful of people that come out every month here. We know how they feel. We know what they want, what they don't want. But that's only a few people. We're a town of 35,000, close to, and we can't call them all, that's for sure. But to have an independent company call different areas of the city and let us know what our city wants. I get complaints all of the time about homeless and drugs. Are we willing to pay higher taxes to have more police on the street to get rid of it? Are we not? I mean, I don't know. I am not for higher taxes, period. But we may have some people here that it's important to. So it's not my choice, it is the people that lives here, their choice. And I think finding out what they feel about cannabis, what they feel about higher taxes, and hearing what they really feel, not just from Kenny. I like that he comes and tells us what he feels, but I want to hear from everybody. And not everybody can come to this meeting, and not everybody would watch it live streamed. I'll tell you, I wouldn't sit at home and watch this. No way, even with no commercials. So to have a company for that amount of money to poll parts, it's not going to be everybody, it's just going to be across the board, and have these questions, and I would love to work on that committee to come up with some of these questions, because I'd like to know the answers. I'd like to know how the rest of the people that don't come here, that some of them maybe don't even know there's a city hall here. Yeah, I'm serious, they don't. And to be able to telephoning or whatever means they're going to use to reach out to them and get some answers to some of these questions, and to be able to answer some of their questions about the city while we're on the phone. So I think that would be great. I'm all for this.
Yeah, I think it's a smart way to go. We're losing like $1,000 next July from the county, right? And we're gonna go to the fire contract. Those are all gonna be costs. The 800 grand can't be spent on those things because that's for revs, right? So, you know, I think it's a smart way to go, at least explore the options, so.
Yeah, I agree. We have a lot of communities around us that have all done sales tax measures. We've all watched them do that and they've passed handily. And I think it's time we at least ask our citizens if they think this is an idea we ought to do. And to sit back and not do anything when we continue to face the challenges we face. I mean, yeah, we've got a nice signed frame bill with a pin from the governor. Check
No money.
Yet, though. And, you know, yes, that starts in February, but that barely gets us back to where we were. And we've got 5 years of deficit to make up for that. You know, we need to look at that. We need to at least let that be a question to our citizens. And so I'd also like to serve with Marcia on that subcommittee as well. I think that's something we need to do, and it's something we need to look at. And I'd hate to go into this blindly. And I know I've had that conversation with 4 of us before when we looked at the Measure Z. And I didn't want to go into that blindly either, and I led us down that path of the same consultant. And I think they'll do fine for us again. I'm sure there's a couple other people that responded to RFP, but oh well. So.
All right, they did a good job, and they'll do it again.
Yep.
And that's what we need to know. I think there's not one of us up here that is for higher taxes.
No.
You know, we're not wanting to raise the taxes, but if you guys want it raised for more services, that's different.
Right.
Totally different.
Yeah, how bad do you want money candy fix?
Yeah,
I mean,
how bad?
More police services.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And to clarify, the city didn't do Measure AA or the school bond, so that was
Right.
school bond and that's been sent over to the city. The question of the cannabis, I mean, we saw that 52% of Wildomar voted, it's half and half. We need to know, do they, yes, they want it to be legal, they want to be able to purchase it, they want to be able to get it, but do they actually want to get it?
But a lot of people thought it was a good idea because it would bring so much tax into the city, and it's not. It's not going to bring hardly anything into the city tax-wise.
Right.
It'll all go to the state. And
No, it's a,
we know where it goes when it goes there. It's gone.
we need to do this.
Well, the other thing, the 800,000, that's why I was asking about the taxes, because we're talking about surveying for a raise in a tax. I mean, the 800,000 is not guaranteed, because most likely it's gonna get defeated on the November. And I have no problem with surveying everybody. The one problem I have with it is the cannabis part of it, because it's still a federal law, and I don't think that it's our right to overstep our boundaries as council members to approve something that would move that way. I mean, it's either we're gonna follow that law or we're not. I mean, it really comes down to, how can I ask everyone in our town to follow our laws, and we're not gonna follow federal in which we swore to the Constitution. So that part of it, I don't even like in there in the survey. The rest of it, I have no problem with that, because I would like to know what everybody thinks about adding 1 cent. I know Temecula had a huge windfall because they did it, but they have a massive system.
And they have a
I
huge
know
tax
that.
base. We don't.
Right, and I understand
Sales
that,
tax.
but he also told us that 1 cent tax increase would increase our revenue by,
About 1.7 million a year.
so it's hard to say no to something like that based on, and that's a sales tax, so that would be something, I mean, I'm for letting everybody make the decision because 5 of us shouldn't make a decision on
Right.
raising everybody's taxes. And I like the idea of a survey. I just don't like the cannabis part of the survey because at this point, it's still federal law, no matter what we say. And if we're gonna allow that, then it's okay that Jerry Brown does what he does against federal law. No, it's still, this is the way it is. We're either gonna follow the federal law or we don't. And we have to choose which way we're gonna go. I don't care if 100% of us in the city says don't go with federal law, but we live under a constitution that tells us we have to follow the law. So when it comes to that kind of thing, I mean, I don't like the cannabis part.
We're gonna keep the cannabis part in there, right? Okay.
I just wanna know how they feel.
Well, then I wanna also know that when it comes up, that, you know,
No, this is,
I wanna also put in
It doesn't
the
mean
survey
how we're
of
going
the
to
cannabis, if the cannabis is in there, I want the people to understand that you will be violating federal law. And you're asking the city to sign it. I'm not willing to sign my name on anything that violates a federal law. At this point, it's still a federal law.
I think
If they
we will.
change it there, have at it. It's up to everybody else to decide, but at this point, I'm not gonna be on that side. So the survey's fine. I'm good with it. You guys, that's
I
fine.
think we're doing our due diligence
Yeah.
for everybody on the whole
Like I
spectrum.
said,
Well, we can't.
the vote was so close, and I think the vote was swayed by taxes. Thinking that they were going to come back to the city. It's not saying that the majority of our voters, my district was against it.
But like
But I think finding out and being able to explain to them if they say, yes, we want these in, and then finding out why do you want them? Is it because you want to smoke, you want to partake, or because taxes are going to be coming to the city that really aren't going to be coming? I think it's a good time to educate them.
Well, what the tax number is too. If they are supportive
Yes.
of that, what would you support for a tax on marijuana? Yeah, I think,
But you're still asking the same question.
well, we have to.
You're still asking the same question, but it needs to be in the survey. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to violate federal law to get a tax off of it? It's really not any other way than to say it than that. And I'm not, because I swore the oath, so we're a sworn office here, right? I mean, we're supposed to follow that rule. You guys want to survey it,
Questions?
but still it comes out to the same thing at the end of the
I make a
day.
motion then.
May I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, make a comment.
Can you,
No, I'm all right, I'm just asking a question, that's all. I'm calm.
and I'm willing to answer, but you have to allow that to happen.
Ben, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, you know, federal law is purposely set up with limitations on federal law and allowing for states to have rights of their own. That is the purpose of the Constitution, to allow the federal law to have federal jurisdiction over interstate commerce. And it's limited to a lot of those things. So when we talk about the medical marijuana ordinance in California, it's purposely set up so that manufacturing, production, and sales happen all in California. And therefore, they don't transfer over the state line. That is not a violation of federal law in that case. So I encourage you to look that up, talk about that. I would respectfully ask that you not say that we're violating our oath when we sit up here and look at this ordinance that has been passed by the state of California and the California voters that purposely sets it up to stay within the bounds of the state of California.
And I'm completely in agreement with all that, except for one problem. It's still a class 1. Doesn't make any difference what the state says, it's still a class 1. Until they change that fact, there's not any way you can get around that.
And for pharmacies that operate in multiple states and transfer stuff across state lines, that's exactly right, it is illegal. But for items produced here, manufactured here, and sold here in California and stays in California, it does not violate federal law.
But it still says class 1 is restricted.
Well, I would say we're not lawyers. I can argue that it's a state rights thing and everything else, but I would say we ask honest, fair questions on the polling, and I'll second.
No, I motion to have Ben Benoit and Marcia Swanson be on the subcommittee, ad hoc subcommittee.
Well, we gotta do the first one first.
Okay,
First,
motion to
first,
approve.
survey first.
A second to,
Make a
okay, I'll make a motion for the survey.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, there's 2 pieces.
Yeah.
I'm just going by what Tom told me.
That's good.
You're good. I'll make-
Motion carries, all ayes.
All right.
Now the subcommittee.
And a motion, Ben Benoit and Marcia Swanson be on the ad hoc subcommittee.
I really wanted to do it, but I feel you guys will represent us well. Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, all ayes.